Welcome to our predicted lineup show for Aston Villa and Southampton. Villa are away at Southampton on Saturday at 3 o'clock. Really looking forward to it. The match preview's gone down really well, so if you haven't already watched it, go and have a look at that as well. It's out on the channel. But before we get into it, we're halfway through the Premier League season now, so I think we should just have a little bit of a chat about what's going on at the top, what's going on at the bottom, what we feel like is going to happen, and sort of where we feel like Villa are going to finish then this season, and sort of like halfway expectations. So
half-term report.
It's all kicking off down the bottom. There's some big clubs down there this season, and I've got a feeling that one of them is going to go. So I would say what's on the screen now, Crystal Palace. Right, I'd say that is pretty much the teams that are in the relegation mix. And when I say there's a big side that's going, I just think Everton are gone. I do. I think you saw what happened last weekend with they're on at the owners and the board and stopping the players getting out of Goodison. It's very much 2015 Aston Villa vibes, isn't it? And it's just turmoil there. And I think the problem what's happened to the teams at the bottom, such as West Ham, Everton, maybe Leeds, if they're still down there, is that because the World Cup came at a time where normally you would start to get rid of your managers, wouldn't you? And then you'd want the new manager to come in, have a bit of a January, and then they reset. And then there's always an upturn in results, isn't there? Now, for teams like Everton, West Ham, Leeds, if they're on about getting rid of Jesse Marsch, we're halfway through January. There's not really much time to settle your squad down with a new manager, is there? So I do worry for those three teams if their form continues. Justin, what are your thoughts on the bottom at the minute?
It's very tight, isn't it? And I think it's probably going to stay like that all season. I think every one of them teams there has got a win in them at some point, haven't they? It's just who can get... Well, this is the obvious thing to say, who's going to get the most wins, but I don't see any of them cut adrift, and that's sort of... You can see that with the points, can't you? So 15 to 20 covers the sort of bottom 7. I always think a good indicator is your goal difference, because although you're down there, so your Leicester and your Leeds, the -7s, it's not horrendous, is it? But whereas you look at Bournemouth, -23, that obviously means that they're conceding loads and they're not scoring many. So that's a big worry for me. That's probably an indicator of... I would probably say Bournemouth are going to go.
Yeah.
And I think one of the current bottom 3 are also going to go. But that obviously means that somebody above those 4 are going to drop in. And I think I actually, as you all know, tipped Wolves to go down this season. And up until they changed the manager, I stood by that. But I think Lopetegui's come in. They look a different team now. I think they've recruited well. I can definitely see them now. I'm not saying they're going to fly away from the bottom, but I can see them getting enough points now to pull away from the bottom places. Forest are currently on a bit of a roll, and they've done really well. I mean, you've got to give the manager a lot of credit there, because he basically signed about 137 players in the summer, didn't he? And he had to sort of basically create a brand new team, and he was under massive pressure. They were rock bottom. It looked like he was going to get the boot. So you've got to give their board a huge pat on the back for sticking with him, and it's looking like it's the right decision now. Leicester are a footy team. You would say they've got enough quality to stay out of it, but they've just keep shipping goals and losing games, don't they? Just when they're clear, they start losing again. So it's a really interesting race, but if I've got to put my money on it now, I think West Ham will pull clear. I think Southampton are in big trouble. Everton are in, and Bournemouth. So I think currently with Everton, everything that's going wrong there, Southampton have had a couple of results, but I don't particularly rate their manager. I think he's a bit out of his depth. That might come back to haunt me, but I'd say Southampton, Everton, and Bournemouth for me.
Yeah, that's my three. I'm going Southampton, Everton, and Bournemouth. And like I was saying earlier, the problem they're going to have is that a couple of these teams at the bottom now are going to have new manager bounces at some time, because I think if the season carried on the way it is and none of them sat their manager, I think they'd all be in and around it, and it'd be really, really close. I think it's down to a couple of those teams whether they bite the bullet, get rid of their manager, and risk the manager bounce to try and get them through. Because I just don't see Everton getting enough points. I think they're really poor.
Well, you're looking at 40 points, aren't you, normally to stay up?
Yeah.
So they've only got 15 at the off. So they've got the three at the bottom, especially, have got to get 25 points now from 19 games, which I also don't think it'll be 40 points. I think it'll be probably mid-30s.
Yeah.
I think, personally, Everton, for me, are nailed on 20th place. New manager bounce or not, I just think it's so similar to 2015-16 season when we were staring down the bullet, and it was such a horrible season. And the scenes that we're seeing with the Everton fans now are the scenes that we went through. Villa Park was horrible to go down. I remember I sat in the North Lower that season, and it was moody as hell. The stewards were replaced with security guards. You weren't allowed to, we're classics, aren't we, for getting the bed sheets out and having a moan about the board. But even that was banned. You used to see fighting in the stands to get these bed sheets off us. You weren't allowed to voice your opinion about Randy Learn. It just got so toxic. The results, we were getting hammered every week. I remember sitting there while Liverpool hammered us 6-0 on Valentine's Day. It was just awful. And the scenes that we had at Wickham away, where the Goosen, wasn't it, chewing the chewing gum, and they were trying to spit it and eat it on the line. Yeah. It was crazy. And the fans
coach after,
the fans went mental, and rightly so. Went mental in the stands. I remember Mika Richards having a chat with everyone, and it got very hostile, and that was the mood. And I remember, Flipping Bakuna coming out and saying, I want Champions League football. I'm not hanging around if we get relegated. Stuff like that. It was just, oh, God, it was horrible. And these memories are buried deep, but they're just sort of resurfaced when I see what's going on at Everton. So for me, I think Everton.
I don't think Everton's board have got the desire to fire Lampard now. They seem to be sort of pulling him into the trenches with them. I don't know whether they use him as a...
That's more of a case of now for them. It's like if Lampard starts getting the flack, it takes
deflecting it
off them, don't it?
That's what I mean. I think it's a deflection tactic. You keep him in the hot seat, and the results keep going bad, and they'll fire it at him. But I think the fans have looked past that now, and they're basically saying they've almost given Lampard a free pass now. They've gone straight to the top, haven't they?
You know what? I always thought that Randy Lerner did that with Alex McLeish. When the money ran out, and then we appointed McLeish, he got barreled. He was always going to get barrels of abuse because where he come from. But I felt like Lerner hung him out to dry during that period.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so let's have a little look. We'll work our way up then. So we'll go from we'll have a look at like 6th to where Aston Villa are. And Jacob Ramsey's done an interview on Villa TV yesterday, and he was saying that there's teams above us that we're looking to claw back and catch. So reading into that, I would say they are Brighton, Brentford, try and catch Fulham maybe. Those are the teams that I'd be looking to claw back. We've had a lot of questions about what would be a good season for Aston Villa. For me, I would take a top half finish. I think if we can finish in the top half, I'd be more than happy with that. I think it would be a great sort of like a building block of, we finished 10th. next season we build on that and try and get to sort of your 7th and your 8th and places like that. So I think it's still all up for grabs. We're only 6 points off Fulham. So yeah, that's where I would say we could finish. Ryan, where are you sort of looking at here then?
You've got to think that Liverpool and Chelsea should be looking to jump Fulham, Brighton, and Brentford, and it's just I think it'll be like a 4-way battle then between us. I think Fulham are having a tremendous season, but you see teams come firing out the blocks like this, and then slowly after Christmas, after the winter months, they sort of peter off, and they get a couple of bad results and they drop down. So a top half finish, really, you got to be looking at nestling in on that top 10. But you just never know, do you? I think it's out the 4 of us: Fulham, Brighton, Brentford, and Villa. Who will finish?
Yeah, and
top
Fulham
out of them
a game
4,
more
really.
than us, so you know that could possibly be.
We've got to play Fulham at home as well, haven't we? So I'll be looking at nestling in with them 4.
Yeah, Justin, what are you saying?
Oh, I agree. I think the top 4 are probably away now. I still got a sneaky feeling Newcastle would just drop out of that 4th place. It's just whether Tottenham, Liverpool, Chelsea can garner any kind of form together to bridge that gap. And at the moment, it doesn't look that likely. But I think Newcastle are due a poor run. After that, I agree. I think you can't help but think that at some point Liverpool and Chelsea are. I mean, the amount of money Chelsea is spending, at some point something's going to. If it's thrown enough shit at the wall, it'll stick eventually. When it's at some point, one of their signings is going to come off. So, you would probably pencil them in for 6th and 7th. So yeah, it's then 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and to be honest, I would take any of them positions.
Yeah.
I can't see us dropping any further than 12th.
No,
I can't see the rest of that pack from Forest downwards catching us. So
I don't see anybody below Forest or even below Palace really putting a real run together. I mean, it could happen. I mean, Wolves potentially, because I still think that there's sneak out.
And you got to look at all the clubs that are below us now. Apart from say Palace and Forest, there's discontent at them all, isn't there? All of them. Leicester are on to Brendan Rodgers. They got no money. Leeds, the Leeds fans don't really like Jesse Marsh.
I think it's a matter of time before he goes.
Are a sinking ship. West Ham and Moyes, Everton and Lampard. So with the vibe that we've got at Villa now, we're in a good place.
Yeah, well, talking about that vibe, you can only really from Liverpool down say that us and probably Forest have got that feel good vibe. There's discontent at Liverpool, there's discontent at Chelsea. So we're in a healthy position at the minute, aren't we?
Yeah. I think we haven't got to get too hung up, I don't think, on finishing anywhere higher than sort of 8th or 9th and don't see it as a negative. I think at the start of the season, we all said if we finished around in the top 10, we'd all be chuffed. And given that we've lost a manager and we've had a lot of upheaval, I think to get a top 10 finish now would be pretty good, to be honest, and not to be sniffed at, and a real good sort of springboard onto next season. And it's looking like they're clearing the decks pretty well this window, and hopefully in the summer that'll continue, and we can just bring in that bit of extra quality we need to make a real concerted push then for the top sort of 8.
Yeah. So we will get into the predicted lineup in a second. But let's talk about the top then. Who is going to win the Premier League this season? Ryan and Justin didn't know who was going to do this. So I've already had time to have a little bit of a think and plan who I've picked to win the league. But I've gone with Arsenal. I think they're going to do it, I think Man City are having a little bit of a mare in the Premier League at the minute. De Bruyne looks like he's injured as well. I think United are an all right team, but I think that they've got some big fixtures to come, and I just think Arsenal are going to do it, and I think Newcastle will get top 4 as well. I think again another team discontent, Spurs. They're having a mare at the minute as well. So I think for Newcastle, it's one of those where they've had a fantastic season, but Liverpool and Chelsea just aren't at it, are they? So they're completely out the top 4 race at the minute. So I think they're just in prime position now, as long as they're a bit consistent. So yeah, I think Arsenal will do it. To be fair, Justin, who are you going with?
For me, I'm saying nailed on Man City.
Really?
I was shut down by saying this the other day on Twitter. For me, Arsenal, it's going to sound really weird because I just think they're in a false position. Yes, I know they've had a good season. Yes, but every time I watch them, I'm just, and I don't think their squad depth is that good either. They've just about managed to sort of get by without Jesus, and Ketty's come in and done a decent job. I don't know. Just something about me saying about the Arsenal that they're not going to win the league. That they'll start to drop at some point. Their form won't continue. I might be very wrong. I often am. So you can beat me with this at the end of the season. I don't see Man United doing it. I don't think they're strong enough yet. Although they're currently on an unbelievable run. At some point, City will click again, like they always do. They're having a dodgy spell, yet they're not a million miles away. And I still think Newcastle will finish out the top 4.
Really?
I know they're 2 big shouts because I'm basically slagging off the 2 most informed teams and the 2 probably teams that have had the best season so far. But that's just how I see it. I might be wrong, but I think City to win the league. And I suppose the only other team that could pip Newcastle at the moment, because Liverpool and Chelsea don't like doing it, is Spurs.
Yeah, my thing
whether they can get the form together.
The other day against Spurs was they were 2-0 up at half-time and Spurs came out the better side. They were completely the better side in the second half. And I just felt like if they'd have lost that game, Arsenal, or Spurs had have scored, I felt like Spurs had have gone on to get something from the game. And the fact that they didn't makes me think, you know what, there's just something. I feel like it's just lined up for Arsenal for something.
I know what you mean. There's a massive game this weekend, isn't there? Isn't it Arsenal Man United this weekend?
Yeah.
I mean, United are nine wins in a row here, so that's a huge game. Because if Arsenal win that one, I don't know. It's just my gut instinct. I'm going off gut here, and not particularly anything else.
What are you saying, Ryan?
I'm saying 27 years of Manchester United rocking up at Villa Park and then we smash them 3-1. Hurt them bad because they've gone on some run since that game. I think they've won every single game at now, and Rashford's on fire. I'm going to agree with both of you. Luke, I'm going to agree with Arsenal. I think it's set up for Arsenal. They've played some good stuff. Saka's looking good. I fancy Arsenal. If they can get some reinforcements in this January, if they can pick the right players to support that squad depth, because it is an issue. Because if they get some injuries, and they're always good for a red card as well and a few suspensions, aren't they, Arsenal? It's just they've got to just remain calm, because they've got a tendency to blow up sometimes, don't they? But I think it's a massive game against Man United, and then I think at the mid-Feb they've got Manchester City at home. Then, so I think if they get, they've got to play them twice in there, but they've got them at home first. And I just think if they can beat United and beat City at home, then I think they'll just have the edge mentally. And Justin, I'm going to agree with you on the Newcastle. Just going back to Villa days under O'Neill, when we had them wicked starts and we'd be top of the league and flying, and we just get to March and just run out of steam. I just feel that Newcastle might do the same, but it's only really Tottenham. Is it only really Tottenham that's challenging them at the minute? So, all to play for. And then City, I don't know. Haaland, right, this might sound daft, but Haaland, world class, isn't he? He's an animal. He's a beast. He's a goal machine. But has he hampered them a little bit? Has he hampered their tiki-taka style? And I don't know. I just feel that City's like swagger and fluent play just ain't quite clicking. And I don't know. It's crazy to think. Is
don't
it
you think they
Haaland's
always
fault?
have? don't you think they always have these little spells in the season when their things don't look right, and all of a sudden, it clicks in there off again?
I do, because they're capable of going and winning 20 games in a row. Easy, we've seen them do it before. But I don't know, I just feel like they've dropped too many points this season, too many draws, defeats. I don't know. I just feel like they can be really got out this season, where, as before, they drop the odd couple of points and then they go and win 10, 12 games in a row. So
I think that you make a good point, Ryan, because I think that the difficult thing for most teams in the Premier League, sort of, say for example, below 10th, sort of like your average Premier League side, Man City's movement over the years has just been amazing, hasn't it? You know, running through channels, dragging people out of position, tick-attack or whatever. I think the fact that they've got a sort of like an out-and-out striker, it's sort of just teams below that, teams in the bottom half can sort of like occupy him a little bit, can't they?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's where they're having a bit of a breakdown in what they're normally like, because
I don't know whether like the 5 sub rule has helped as well, because City will just wear you down mentally, physically. But then when you can change half your team and you can put your low blocks and your mid blocks in, and you can reinforce that as the game goes on. So I always thought the 5 sub would just help the top 6 teams, but you see more and more where these teams can set up more defensively and go and get a draw.
You go 6 to the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Works, though.
It does.
Cool. Let's get stuck into the predicted lineup then. Let's have a look at how Aston Villa can line up against Southampton. I think it picks itself, don't it, really?
I was going to say, I think this is the easiest one of the season.
It's got to be the easiest one. So we'll just, while I'm filling it in, then I'll just get your thoughts then on what you expect, how we're going to beat them, and how we sort of stop Southampton from playing then, i.e. Ward-Prowse. So go with you then, Ryan. What type of game are you expecting?
I'm interested to see how Emery approaches this one, because I don't think we can be too conservative in this one. I think we've got to get at them, because obviously they're going to be buoyed by the Everton result, and they're going to want to come out the blocks, aren't they? So I think we got to fight fire with fire a little bit. But I don't know. I think Emery likes to take the sting out of the game, doesn't he? He likes to kill it, annoy, frustrate, and then second half attack and be ruthless, don't he? So I'd say we're favourites for this game, and this is the first time we've gone into a away game really as a favourite and looking to win the game. I didn't really expect us to beat Brighton. I didn't really expect us to beat Tottenham, but I'm sort of expecting us to beat Southampton on Saturday. So I'm looking forward, and I'm really intrigued to see how Emery approaches this one.
Yeah, I think going into it, thinking about how Southampton have played then. So they've beat Palace in the FA Cup. They've beat Man City at home in the Carabao Cup. And then they won a dogged, determined display against Everton, where either team could have won it. It could have been a draw, and it was a bit of Ward-Prowse magic that won it. So, I think thinking of how they'd set up, I imagine that they would have confidence. They'd want to try and take the game to us a little bit. I expect us to try and, like you say, nullify what they tried to do in the first 10, 15 minutes. We have a spell and grow into the game, maybe nick a goal, and then go from there. And I just feel like if we assert ourselves properly with possession of the football, do all of the things that we do well and we should be doing right in this game, then I think worthy favourites, and I think we probably should go out and win this game, because they're struggling down the bottom. They're not exactly playing blistering football. So I think if we can keep Ward-Prowse out the game, stop Che Adams running through, or if we keep our high line nice and high and get the offsides, then I think we can. I think we can win. Justin, what are your thoughts as we edge closer?
I think it's going to be a really interesting tactical game. I might be wrong with this, but is this the first time we've played against a 5-3-2 formation under Emery? I can't think of anyone else playing 5 sort of wing backs, 3 at the back.
Yeah. No, I
So
don't think we have.
it's going to be very interesting because if you're not careful, that could overload us in the middle of the park unless we get it tactically right. I think Bailey and Buendia have got to keep their sort of wing backs pen back. Elanusi and Walker Peters, who I really like. I think he's a really good fullback and a player I'll possibly look at maybe to come into us next season if they go down because I really rate him at right back. I think he's a good player. He's playing currently sort of left wing back for him at the moment. So you've got to be careful because then they've got the 3 in the middle with obviously Ward-Prowse playing as the 10. So if we're not careful, they'll have 3 against our 2. So it means Ramsey's got to maybe help out a little bit more centrally or maybe
So
get on the...
sit a little bit more like this a little bit.
Possibly. It's good. This is what I'm saying. It's going to be a really interesting game because we're coming up against a different tactic, aren't we? So if their fullbacks are allowed to bomb on, they've got 2 strikers instead of 1. So they could almost get an overload on the flanks because we don't play with natural width. So that is why I'm saying Bailey, Buendia and Ramsey have got to make sure whilst they're giving us an outlet and a threat going forward, they've also got to make sure that they're doing it to keeping their wing backs occupied. Otherwise, we could be overloaded. And if they're basically busy on the side, keeping them quiet, then you've got the 3 in the middle. Diallo, is it, Lavia and Ward-Prowse in the centre. So because we play 2 6s and sort of 3 asymmetric in front of them, it's going to be interesting to see which way Emery decides to sort of counteract what they're doing, keep them quiet, whilst also giving us the opportunity to get forward and create chances. I actually think Moreno could be, a key player for us on Saturday, bombing up and down because that will help sort of nullify the threat of their wing backs if our sort of left back can get forward, and then Young obviously, like we say, tucks in. Moreno becomes sort of an auxiliary attacker, doesn't he, for us? So it is going to be interesting. They've almost got nothing to lose because they're rock bottom and they've got to start winning games. They've had a good week. The first 15, 20 minutes of me will tell us everything we need to know about this game. If we can just keep it quiet and even nick one in that first 20, I'd be over the moon going in at 0-0 at half time and then saying, right, the pressure is massively on them then to try and pick it up. So we could then hopefully then pick them off in the second half whilst they're maybe trying to go for the win. We can maybe pick them off and do them on the break.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a good game.
And that's the thing as well, when you are down the bottom, it's like when you have a really good result and you win and you're still rock bottom, it's like... It doesn't mean anything, does it? It's like you've got the points, but you're still there. So there is still massive, massive pressure on Southampton because they've still got to keep winning and they have to find a way to win. So I think we're in a position where we go there and we're full of confidence, but it's really that there's more pressure on them, to be fair. So
it's also one of the key things, obviously, from going away, is keeping the home fans quiet, and like you've just said, they've had 2 decent results last week, and they've got a little bit of a flickering of fight about them. But if we just literally put that down straight away and dominate from the start, maybe go 1 up, hopefully 2 up, their fans are going to go, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I thought it was too good to be true. We're back, we're back to where we was last week. Whereas the other way is they have a good first 10, score, and then all of a sudden it's a totally different game. Then you're really up against it. So first 15, 20 is going to be massive. If we can just get on top and stay on top, I think given their need to try and win the game, I think we could definitely capitalise on that and open them up and beat them that way.
And I think we will start to be an away side which the home fans absolutely hate because we don't give you an inch. We shithouse when we need to. And I think we could be very, very frustrating. So I think playing sides like Southampton or anyone that's in and around the relegation zone, when there is a bit of summer on this game, I don't think we're a nice team to play against. So I have put Watkins up top because we have heard that he's back in training this week. Do you feel like we will go with Watkins, Ryan, or do you think Ings will come back to haunt Southampton?
I think, given it's so early in the week and Watkins is already back training, then I'd think we'd go for Watkins. Even though Danny Ings' record against former club excites me, I think Watkins away from home just gives you that bit more hold-up play. Brings the Buendia and Ramsey and Bailey into the game a bit more. Ings, I do like Ings. He's so intelligent and his link-up play is superb, but he just hasn't got that one player to feed off. Do you know what I mean? He's
Watkins is an outlet, isn't he?
Yeah, but Ings needs that player to play off. And he's so intelligent, and you see the runs he makes and the players that he picks out, and his finishing is superb. But he's just not suited to playing with Watkins or whoever else around him. He hasn't just got that focal point to play off. So I think for this one, I think he will go Watkins.
Yeah.
What about Duran?
Well, I'll be happy to see him.
Perfect outlet for Danny Ings there, mate.
But I've got a feeling he's going to be going back to that tournament. I think
I read somewhere that he wasn't he? He's flying back for his medical and get the deal done.
Emery's friends with, is it Carlos Bacca? And is he the manager of something in Colombia or something? So I've got a vibe he might be going back, but I hope he don't. I hope he has to stay. But cool, right? So we'll end it there then. Predicted lineup / chatting about everything else apart from Villa. But yeah, cheers everyone for watching. Make sure you watch the match preview, and we'll have the press conference reaction as well. I think me and Justin are going to do that one on Thursday. And yeah, see you all later. Up the Villa.
Up the third shirt. Let's break that curse.